What's interesting is that you've been working on Rolexes, which is, I want to say, one of the most famous watch brand there is, but then you also have the Apple Watch, which is right now, if you count like number-wise, they're the first watchmakers in the world.
I know they are. They're making more watches and cameras than anyone.
Exactly.
I know, it's a trip.
Hey guys, we're here downtown LA in the foundry of Good Art HLYWD, just about to meet with Josh Warner, the founder of this brand, 100% made by hand, here in this facility. So come on in. Hey guys, this is the LA in LA series, and I am here at the factory of Good Art HLYWD with founder Josh Warner. So Josh, I've met you a couple of years ago. You were very hard to track down, yet we made it happen. So how this whole adventure started off in 1990, I was basically 1 year old, all the way up to now, like 32 years later. So where should we start on that journey?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think the current part is the best part. Yeah, there's just some stories about how things started and where we got to, trips along the way, but fortunately, I'm still on the journey, and the stuff I'm headed towards, I think, is just as exciting as the stuff I was headed towards when I first started. I feel like I've got the ability to reflect and put that back into what we're doing currently. So I'll tell you the history, but the coolest shit is definitely happening. It's happening now, you know?
Well, I mean, when we look at obviously the jewelry, which is how I first approached you a couple of years back, and now you're moving on to different cool stuff, but everything started with that rosette that we see pretty much everywhere, which is part of your DNA.
Yeah.
You started off as a pretty bad kid in LA, and look what you are right now.
I don't know if I was a bad kid. I might have gotten in some trouble, but you know, a lot of good kids get in trouble too. I definitely am. I feel very much an LA guy. Like, I love LA. It's definitely like it's part of the DNA of the brand. I think being able to make my bones doing something artistic and creative, and here in LA and sort of connected to my roots, it's definitely been it's been both difficult and a beautiful blessing at the same time. The city's changed. I mean, we can all see how the pandemic has affected all the major cities out. I mean, the city centers are not what they used to be, and there's a lot of major changes going on just from the pandemic and lockdown and all of that. But I still have this great love of working in LA and creating something earnestly, like by hand in this factory, and sending it out all over the world, and this being the actual source of it. Almost everything that we use is it's from here. We don't buy in a lot of materials or things like that. We buy in raw materials, but we don't buy in a lot of componentry, springs and snaps and things like that.
Make everything.
Yeah, we try to make everything. And I think in this day and age when you know, shaving pennies by having things made somewhere else, or exploiting like another economy to make products you need, components you need cheaper so you can keep your price down. I think that's just been the way of the world for so long, or the way of the Western world for so long, the way of manufacturing in the States, that we sort of struggled with keeping that here. There's been plenty of opportunity to move elsewhere where everything's going to be cheaper. But there's we collectively, and me personally, I have like a good sense of pride that we still make everything right here.
And now you've incorporated everything in-house, because when you first started, you had to work with different suppliers, even though everything was here, LA based. Now you make everything from A to Z, so you can control the whole quality control. But like, for people who don't necessarily have heard of Good Art HLYWD, like, how would you define the brand?
Well, I mean, simply we make totally unnecessary trinkets. It's you know, this is
unnecessary into very cool stuff.
Yeah, this facility. It's a bit of a old-fashioned design house in that I'm very interested in the end communication of a product before I start making the product. And a lot of times things that I make for myself or for the company, things that we want to put out, they're spawned out of, wouldn't it be great to have a, you know, or boy, I could sure use one of those, or I'd love it if I had a better one. You know,
so like what, for example? Because you did a Sharpie cap, you did a lip balm, like a silver thing.
I need a corkscrew, and I've needed about 200 keychains. Okay, so need is not the operative word, but the truth is, I've always wanted to work in a way that I could contribute to a good motion. So I feel like when I make something cool, even if it's silly, like a chapstick holder, it's fun, and for the person who sees it and says, I gotta have that, I probably, like, we found a way to make their day. And I get how at first sight a lot of that stuff just seems silly, but I've made a life's work out of hot rodding simple shit. I love hot rodded. I like something turned up to 11, and I like hot rodding in every sense, not just motorsports. Like, I think you can hot rod anything. These are hot rodded mailbags. So yeah, things have evolved and changed. But I also, looking at it now after so many years, I see like the evolution has been very sort of steady, and it just kind of keeps flowing. There's no massive drastic changes over the years that I think threw us off course.
You've started working on silver, you still do, you've incorporated a couple of like gold and diamonds, but the rosette, what's the story behind this like feminine flower that you're transforming into something super rough and masculine, but at the same time
I totally stole
delicate?
It. Yeah,
you stole it before.
I stole it. Well, I mean, okay, you got me stuttering. When I was younger, I was going to say when I was a bad kid. Those are your words. I was not a bad kid.
You told me that once.
Well, I probably paraphrased. I got in trouble and I got sent out of the state in a deal my brilliant father made in front of the judge, where it was like, okay, you're going into kiddie jail. You're going to go to juvenile hall, or you can get out of the state. And so I went to a school out of the state. And the school I went to was like a wilderness school for fuck-ups. It was a wilderness school for kids that were definitely not getting along well at home. Okay. Like me, I was not getting along well. I was running away, I was doing drugs, I was hanging out with older kids, I was doing a lot of things that, they helped shape me into who I am today.
But that's how your creativity started, probably not right off the right foot,
yeah.
But to some extent it did.
I think a lot of how lucky I've been hasn't been obvious until of late. Like, I think a lot of my experiences when I was young, though it was horrible getting in trouble or getting arrested and sent off to a school, like anything in life, it's kind of how you look at it. And by getting sent off to school in Montana, I was out of that environment in LA that I was getting into so much trouble in, and I was in the middle of the Rockies, and so, you know, it's sort of a lemonade from lemons kind of situation. But not at the time. I was protesting and upset and not happy about it, and they sent me away. But looking back on all kinds of experiences like that, I think that was great. But one of the magical things about that time in that school was the guys who ran it, Steve and Nancy Caudry. They were total adventurers. I mean, they are. I haven't seen them for many years, but Steve, the headmaster, he had this idea that we'd take a trip to Europe. And we're all, I don't know, 13 or something. We're like, great, let's go to Europe. It wasn't our trip to Europe. It was his trip to Europe. We got into a van at the airport with our backpacks, and next thing you know, we're at like a youth hostel in the middle of somewhere, seemingly nowhere, and then further outskirts, and then we're camping, and then we're hiking, and we're kayaking on the lochs in Scotland. We're doing all these outdoor pursuits and adventurous kind of stuff. We did go to the cities every now and then, and at 13 we all managed to get completely fucked up and drunk and in trouble, and you know, I'm very disappointed in you when they find the bottles in the morning, and we're like, well, you did bring a bunch of delinquent 13-year-olds to England, Scotland, Wales, and France. It was interesting. But one of the beautiful things that came out of that was the rosette. I saw that stuff then, and it was like they were like architectural details. I did rubbings of carved versions of this, and
the rosette is the original name of that flower.
It's actually, honestly, it's the name I gave to it. It just happened to be that later on, when I researched it, you could look up a generic thing called a rosette, and it is one of these, regardless of how many flower or petals or whatever. So it was something that was, by the time I saw it, hundreds of years old. It was in a cemetery. I don't know where or a church.
But so about a decade has passed from that trip to when you decided to create Good Art.
Yeah, it was maybe 6, 7 years, 8 years. Yeah, it was a good 7, 8 years. And you know what was funny is there was no. Sometimes I see things and I'm like, okay, I saw that, and I file it away. It's not like, oh, I saw that, I know what I'm going to do with it. July 13th, 1991, you better whip that thing. I had no fucking clue. I think I'm a bit of a collector of, adventures and memories and some stuff. And there was a decided moment where I was trying to teach myself to make something out of metal. I was trying to make a piece of jewelry. I knew I wanted to carve a piece of wax and cast it, and that was it. That was as far as it went. And this was pre-internet. You want to learn something right now, you let your fingers do the walking. You just type into the Google and you can get a video on how to do just about any fucking thing you can spell out. There was no internet, so you'd ask people. I asked people, and I talked to people, and I would get a lot of information. Some people want to share stuff, some people wouldn't, but the guys who wanted to share stuff, they're always, it was always like like a full, complete life lesson that would happen sometimes in an afternoon at somebody's shop or whatever. I feel like I was taught a lot of things that weren't foreign to me. They were familiar.
You kept it at the back of your head, and you just at some point build it up to a point where you could actually do something with it.
Well, yeah, I mostly kept the rosette in the back of my mind, and when I was trying to carve wax, I was drawing this rosette over here on a piece of paper, and I was like, wait a second, that's dumb. I can just draw it on the wax and then cut it out. And I'd use a saw, and I cut out the circle, and then I'd drill some holes, and yeah, I think I still have those original they're just little medallions,
But now we can see that
there's no purpose. I still work the same way. I make a lot of things that don't have a specific need or purpose. I made a piece that has a double hinge, and it's kind of flat, and it was really just an experiment because I wanted to feel something that moved like that, and made it, and then fold it in half, and I was like, holy shit, you can put your finger through there. There's a ring. Sometimes things evolve out of the strangest experiments, but
serendipity.
Yeah, it's called serendipity.
That doesn't exist in French.
But the truth of all of that is you have to be willing to put yourself in a position where happy accidents are going to happen. So you've got to be doing and constantly. For me, I don't know, this is no recipe for anybody. If you're listening, this is not advice. I think I'm constantly driven to make myself see something a certain way, or create something, or make something, and it's typically not. Though it might seem different looking at the line up in the family room, it's typically not so product based. Like I'm going to make another watch, or I'm going to make another wallet or thing that does something specific. It's more like I'm driven to create something aesthetic and cool and fun.
Speaking of watches, you've never been a purist, a watch collector.
No.
How did you think of creating the one, I think in my opinion, is one of the coolest watch band ever?
The one for the Submariners, for the Rolexes. I know exactly what occurred there. I had a friend who had a watch and wanted a band for it, and I said, I can do that. But I was so nervous I didn't own a Rolex. Like, those were for the rich people who were buying my jewelry back then. I was terrified that what if my watch band wasn't up to snuff? What if the clasp opened up and my friend's Rolex hit the ground? I was so nervous. So I made this.
You created a fake one. You created a bracelet.
I called it a dummy, and it was a Rolex dummy. And the idea was you could put this on, test the clasp, wear it, and I made, I can't remember, 3 or 4 of these, and me and some others wore them around, and we were testing it. Nothing fell off, so I was like, fuck it, I'll make a band. Here's the simple truth of it. These sort of methods are just me kicking and scratching my way through. You've figured that out by now, right?
I did.
Okay, so I have some unusual habits with regard to design, but one of my habits is see it through. Like, spare no expense on the exploration. Like, really see it through. Design it as complicated or as busy or as simple or as clean as it needs to be, but just go all the way to the end and then figure out where you want to go from there. Because sometimes it takes doing an awful lot on a piece just to back it all up into something simple, which ends up being the best solution in the end.
Did you have a lot of failures?
I don't think of this isn't a failure. This was like, This is the kind of thing about taking it all the way that I'm talking to. Like, nobody's going to see these. These aren't for public consumption. These are for my own creative exploration and pursuits.
So if I want it, I wouldn't be able to get it.
Well, no. This is just a
It's a cool bracelet.
This is a thing. This is a thing to get me to the thing. Yeah, but that's, I guess, what I'm trying to articulate is the actual creative pursuit is often like the rest of the iceberg, and the tip is the piece that comes out of it. And I live for that iceberg. Like, the piece at the end is fun. Like, don't get me wrong, it's brilliant when you arrive. But the journey is definitely, like, it's good these days, especially. But it's always been like that. This is 10 years ago or 15 years
But when you
ago.
create something like that, like, obviously you don't make a lot, because you have the Datejust, you have the Daytonas, you have the Sea Dwellers, you have all these. Like, how do you were showing me, like, the tiny parts that were actually made.
Oh yeah, where is that? Do you have that key?
Right behind you, I think.
That thing's, oh yeah, this thing's cool. Okay, so this is part of the whole system. So this isn't something that the public would ever see, but each one of these, you can take them off. Each one of these is a end piece to a watch, and there's a number. There's like 3 main factors. There's the actual fit and shape that goes into the watch of the end piece, and then there's the location of the pin, which strangely changes on the watch. I think Rolex does it just so I have to make another one of these every time.
It's like Apple, when they release a new product, you just have to get another plug because it
That's
doesn't
right.
work.
This is like, these are like, these represent probably these and like 7 others, like
But what if
4
somebody
generations
comes in,
of watches.
What if somebody comes in with another watch that isn't a Rolex?
I mean,
Another challenge for you.
we probably wouldn't be able to do it. The reason that these ones were finished, so what happens is a watch comes in and somebody wants a band for it, and we say, great, we've got it. Then they come in with a watch, we don't have a band for it. We look at it and we say, do we have time to make another one? If we can make a connector piece for it, is there a good chance that we can make a few of them? If so, I'll probably do it, and we'll just, sell that first guy his, and then the next person that comes in, they won't have to wait quite as long. If it's something obscure, and it's something I'm probably not going to be doing again, I can do it, but I have to turn it into like a custom job. Like that guy's got to really, really want that thing.
Of course.
There's
But I mean,
you have to sort of cut it off. There's limits to what we can do just because of the bandwidth of this studio, you know.
What's interesting is that you've been working on Rolexes, which is, I want to say, one of the most famous watch brand there is, but then you also have the Apple Watch, which is right now, if you count like number-wise, they're the first watchmakers in the world.
I know they are. They're making more watches and cameras than anyone.
Exactly.
I know, it's a trip. Okay, so the reasons for doing these things, I think, were completely different. The Rolexes started out because a friend with a Rolex really wanted one, and another friend with a Rolex wanted one, and it was, you know, it very organically kind of grew, and it's cool, and I like doing them. The Apple Watch thing, though I'm not an Apple Watch wearer, I like the dichotomy of this old world craftsmanship and hammering out this sort of heavy, almost archaic, and like, listen to the thing close. It's, ooh, it doesn't sound digital at all, right? It sounds very mechanical. So here you've got like more technology than you need to fly an airplane from 30 years ago. And here you've got like super lo-fi, low tech, and this like mechanism where you can see the springs. I don't know, there was something about the possibility of making it that I wanted to.
But it's easy also because everybody, like when you get an Apple Watch, everybody gets the same depending on the generation, but it's easier than a Rolex.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sure we sell far more of these than the Rolex bands. I never thought of it from that viewpoint, but of course. But again, this is what I'm talking about. For me, I've got to have a reason for doing it, and I've got to have like this fits on the pirate ship. This is silly. The band costs more than the watch,
well,
and I think actually I'm not even sure how much are Apple Watches.
No idea.
Okay, well,
200, 300.
Oh yeah, so the band for sure costs more than the watch, but what happens is you end up with something that really probably never should have been. Nobody's making mayonnaise ice cream. This is I don't know.
Look,
this is a
Hermes
dichotomy for me.
Hermes did a watch band, like leather, genuine, for the Apple Watch, which was a limited edition. You should be the next one Hermes works with. Apple, sorry, works with.
I think that's all. I'm working with them right now. They just don't know it.
Of course.
I think that's
we'll
beautiful.
Tell them. It will be a reminder.
Yeah.
Guys, he's here. We found him.
I wonder, it's funny. Yeah, because this is sort of like a slightly, I mean, this is a hot-rodded version of an Apple Watch, but this is a slightly bootleggy thing because it's not a proper, Apple, if you're listening, let's do this. I'm just joking. I don't even know.
Don't be. You never know what can happen.
I definitely like a leather strap on a computer. I like a sterling strap, like a sterling band on it. But I look for things that I think are going to elevate the boring or the mundane. I really do find great pleasure in uplifting an area
Daily
or a
object
thing or an everyday object. Yeah, it's.
So what's the next one, or what's the one you're currently working on that we haven't seen?
Well, you mentioned a chapstick holder the other day, and now Chapstick is a brand, so let's just say it's not Chapstick brand, but there's a lip balm that we are coming out with, and I'm just super excited about making a new carrier for it. I don't have my keys on me, which is so silly, yeah. But that's the one I was working on this morning, and there's a lot of projects. There's a really cool project we're working on for a motorcycle company that's bitchin', and there's the thing we're doing with a car company. So there's like unusual things off my normal.
But I mean, you work off the beaten path, and yet you have all these cool projects. Like, you should be everywhere, and you don't want to be.
I don't want to be everywhere. I just want to be I want to be at the. Yeah, I want to be in the middle of the projects that are super fun. Like, I want to be every project we have going right now is fun. That's sort of the line in the sand. You and I were talking earlier about, the difference between being, say, 23 and 33 or 33 and 43. And I find
53.
We're 53, as I am. I find 33 for me was a beautiful sweet spot where I knew enough that I could make decisions sort of founded in experience instead of what other people told me. But I also was young enough and energetic enough that I could continue marching that way. And so if I look at what I've done the last, 2 decades since I had all that 33-year-old energy, it's kind of cool. I definitely see there was a slight sort of there was a change in my viewpoint, and I maybe was more on my own path than the path I fell on. I was maybe more on a path I wanted to be on.
Is there anything you would have done differently?
Fuck, that is the funniest one. Yeah, I mean, I fucking bought Bitcoin, wrote down my passwords, and put it in like a physical notebook and mailed it to myself the way, the way you did in Back to the Future. I don't know. I am sure, I mean, who wouldn't do things differently knowing what you know now? I think that the trick
things
is...
that you've done and like you don't regret. Like I'm sure at some point, when you went to that European trip, like you were not excited about it, but if you had done what you had done before, you probably wouldn't be where you are today.
Yeah, it's true. I have a few regrets, just very few. And I do my best to I hope the next time we talk, I'm gonna be like, I have no regrets. I mean, that's the true Zen or peace, right? Is not having any regrets.
Well, look, you're almost in the position where you can give me like a life lesson.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. I definitely realize more and more how I truly am doing what I want to be doing. And I have to remind myself, because in the middle of the daily frustrations or whatever's difficult, or damn it, that thing didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to, or whatever it is, the things that frustrate me, they're typically the things that come up against that drive that I have to constantly want to be creating and finding a new viewpoint and living in that aesthetic band. But the truth is, that sort of aesthetic realm, every now and then you get yanked out of it and you're like, oh, you got to run a business, or you got to make a decision about this, or somebody just did this thing that you need to react to and handle. And so there's this balance for me between what I absolutely love, which is creating, and what I need to do to keep creating, which is to keep sort of, running the business and the other sides to that. But as of late, I realize that it's not as much of this as it is, it's just this. It's all, I spend a lot of time being like, damn, I wish there was more of the good times. I mean, not literally, I'm paraphrasing my own idiocy. Whereas of late, I'm looking at it and thinking that, well, there are all the good times I want, and this is just sort of part of it. And I feel like I might have arrived at where I wanted to arrive without ever planting the flag or acknowledging it.
But I mean, also
quite some time ago.
Well, one thing we didn't talk about is Rachel, who you share your life with, but she's also your partner in the adventure.
That's Donnie. That's not Rachel.
It's a miracle, but Rachel, I'm sure, helps you throughout the journey where you both.
Yeah, help's not even close enough to the magnitude. That doesn't even just begin to describe it.
Again, congratulations on everything and that beautiful journey and story and everything that you've created, from watch to jewelry to stupid daily objects that we all want to carry and collect because they're just cool.
Listen, here's how I would have to gauge my success right now. It's based really on how happy Rachel and I are, and that metric can't be separated from how happy everybody else working here is as well. It's truly, this is a small shop by many metrics, but if you walk around and look at the work being done and the people doing the work, I think what you see is there's a beautiful common drive to create the best thing that we can make here, and it doesn't matter what the piece is. There's so much care and love, and at this point, skill, craft, expertise that goes into it, that that happiness is now about, you know, how much fun we're having doing it. Now we've got all the systems in place and things are going great. Are we remembering to, like, you know, enjoy
well, you
all
know,
of that?
you're using the exact same words that watchmakers, when you go up to Swiss manufacturers, are using: the skills, the craftsmanship, the passion. And it goes back to hundreds of years ago.
Those guys are probably better than we are.
Yeah, but I mean, yes and no, nobody's better. You guys are just different, but doing it with the same passion and same, to some extent, perfection. So congratulations for that.
Thanks, lady. I can totally take that. That's good. I've always believed it's not as important what you do as how you do it and how it affects yourself and others. So thank you. Things are things are good. Things are good.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Good, not even good luck, but I mean, keep going on this amazing project, because we want to keep buying cool stuff.
Cool. I genuinely want to keep making cool stuff.
Perfect. So go back to work then.
Thank you.